Let's take you here now. DA Chief Whip Siviwe Gwarube says South Africa cannot be a constitutional democracy when a sitting president is accused of breaking the law with the alleged assistance of state institutions. Gwarube tabled the DA motion calling for the establishment of an ad hoc committee to investigate all the circumstances around the robbery at President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm in Limpopo in 2020. She told the National Assembly that the purpose of the ad hoc committee is to investigate the role of other institutions in the Phala Phala matter. Now let's get analysis. We're now joined via Zoom by political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, what's the significance of this motion by the DA that is now so widely supported by opposition parties, given that there is already, the three-man independent panel looking into the prima facie evidence against President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. I think what the Democratic Alliance is trying to do is to try and triangulate their approach, where they want to put tremendous pressure on the African National Congress and the presidency to react to some of the allegations out there. But one has to ask several questions around this approach, because we have seen this in the past, and in most instances that not been a favorable outcome for the opposition party, including for the Democratic Alliance.
Now, let's look at some of, what it basically says. So the DA is basically saying that this is different from the three-man panel, which is why this route is more important, because it not only looks at, the president himself, but also looks at cabinet ministers. Talk to us about just some of those cabinet ministers that have been implicated, particularly if you look at the Deputy Minister of Intelligence, who's been exonerated.
Yeah, no, most importantly, also, if you look at the Reserve Bank, there have also been talks that they need to speed up their investigations. You even have external institutions such as the Public Protector's Office. But there's a Minister of Police, you've got a Minister of Intelligence, and various other state agencies that should have responded already to this particular crisis. But if you talk about the president and the presidency, and yet again, you talk about other ministries, I mean, you are actually asking for these ministers to take action against their leader. And in any democracy where we don't have the situation that we currently have in our country, I think accountability would have taken place, and transparency around this particular issue. But we all know that once you take action against your own, there will be consequences. And in most instances, the consequences that some of these individual leaders will face is that they will be out in the cold. They will definitely face some consequences from the African National Congress if they had to act against their own. And it's a very unfortunate part of our democracy, where we've seen on numerous occasions how public representatives who have taken out of office comes and support and even protect their own.
Prof, just help us, if this motion does then become successful, there is voting currently happening in the National Assembly, what would the likely next steps be?
The most likely step will be to impeach the president. And I think there will obviously be tremendous pressure on the president. He will no longer have an opportunity to hide behind this whole notion that, or narrative, that there is a criminal investigations going on, and that opposition parties and South Africans should actually allow for that process to take place. Once this vote goes against him, I think definitely an expectation will be for him to react. And one way to react perhaps will be that the opposition will call for his resignation. And that will be quite interesting to see how that will go. But with the voting, we all know that once the voting, it's by hand, where people have to have, do it in a very very open manner. I don't foresee that the opposition will win this, but it always becomes a problem when it is a secret ballot.
Well, let's look at a process that is obviously going to go ahead, and that, of course, is the three-persons, independent panel. We've seen developments, coming through there, where Professor Richard Calland, of course, had to excuse himself, replaced now by senior advocate Mahlape Selo. Talk to us about that particular process. I mean, we are told that, of course, this is going to be an independent process looking at those allegations against President Cyril Ramaphosa. How independent are we made to believe this panel will be, and where do they operate within the confines of some of the Section 89?
Yeah, we should just, by comparison, look at what is happening currently with the Ad Hoc Committee that have been set up to investigate the public protector. That is a parliamentary committee, but here you've got external people acting independently, and the expectation is they will then make a recommendation to the Speaker of the National Assembly, and then it's only then that parliamentarians will have an opportunity to interrogate those recommendations. So it's still a long way, and because I from where I'm sitting, I strongly believe that the opposition would like a certain outcome, and that the president should be found guilty. And the question sometimes with these kind of investigations is, what if this committee comes up and recommend that the president actually handled this in a right way by handing it over to investigators, and it's they that had to be blamed? Then I strongly believe that the next approach from the opposition parties, including the Democratic Alliance, will then start to blame this particular committee to say they are biased and they did not do their work. But in some, they will definitely have to make some recommendations, and it's up to Parliament how they will interrogate and react and respond towards those recommendations.
Well, I guess it's a case of waiting to see what will transpire. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. That was political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi.